me tell you a little bit about Karen before I bring her into the conversation. Karen's a professional architectural and freelance photographer from Penn Valley in California, and her publications include The House That Jill Built, a collaborative effort with fellow Buddhist practitioner Judy Ostrow, and John of God, the Brazilian healer who's touched the lives of millions. She co-authored that with Heather Cumming. Karen travels the world taking photographic journeys to temples and sacred sites in Nepal, India, South and North America, meeting and studying with masters such as His Holiness Penor Rinpoche, Ogyen Tulku Rinpoche, and Chogyal Namkhai Norbu. And from these experiences, she gives passionate photo talks on the universal living spirit energy. If you would like more information about Karen, please visit her website, which is Karen Leffler. Leffler is Leffler, photos.com. So KarenLefflerPhotos.com. Well, Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
It's great to have you with us, Karen. I'm really excited to have you on the show because really spirit photography is not a subject that we've discussed in the past, but it's also a subject I'm really interested in, and we're interested as well to ask you about John of God. So my first question for you, Karen, is how did all of this begin?
Well, it began at John of God's. I was not a photographer and had no interest in it, I didn't think. I was a realtor, actually, when I was standing in front of the entity, Dr. Valdivino. And he said through the interpreter, Heather, who I wrote the book with, where's the professional photographer? And so I'm excited. I got my Instamatic around my neck, and I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. There's going to be a real professional photographer here taking photos. And she turns to me, and she says, he means you. And I said, me? And he looks at me, points right to me, and he says, take my photo. And it wasn't like, please take my photo. It was, take my photo. And so I got on one knee like the good ex-Catholic child that I am, and took 3 of the worst pictures I've ever taken, in that they were all out of focus because my hands were shaking so much. But the beauty of them, the richness of the love that is within the entity was in those photos. And interestingly enough, of all the photos that I have, when Oprah did her documentary on John of God, she chose one of those first 3, though I rarely show them to anybody. So that's how it began. And definitely it's a wonderful, wonderful gift. I've even taken it now into videography, hoping to share some of the special people in our area here in the Grass Valley area in California and the work that they're doing.
It's wonderful. I have a collection of photographs and artwork with spirit faces in them, Karen, and so I wanted to ask you which piece or which photograph do you feel is most evidential, or which one are you proudest of?
You know, that's really hard to say. I love them all, and I love them even when they don't show the spirit energy, especially around John of God or any of the spiritual work that I do, even my artwork that I do of Buddhas. There's so many special ones, but the very first one that the entities ever gave me is one of a huge arc of light, and it's in our book on John of God. Simon & Schuster decided to choose a number of spirit photos, and I felt very blessed that they would do that. And they chose one of these. When I showed it to the entity, and I wasn't aware of this so much at the time, the spirit, Dr. Augusto, said to me, see the power of crystals. And there was always this wonderful, beautiful crystal on the altar, but I didn't really know the significance of it and what it was doing and amplifying the spirit energy, the light energy, which we can't see normally with our eyes, was so self-evident in these photos. And not only was the energy arcing and radiating out, but the energy was so powerful that in my camera, even though some things were in focus, there was an out of focusness that didn't come from shake. It simply came from the energy being as powerful as it was, and the camera received it, through the hands that I holding it. But it was definitely a gift of spirit, and I'll ever be grateful for that first one.
It's wonderful. And Karen, how do you just feel led to photograph certain things at certain times? Does spirit guide you to capture certain moments or certain images?
Surely, when I get behind a camera, I'm not me. It's as if the photos create themselves. It's the most wonderful feeling of being at one and at peace, and of just being excited, a gift of excitement, that I'm there in this rich energy of love, and that I can capture that in the moment. I'm not even thinking. There's no thought. There's just this deep reverence and love in the moment, and the photos get taken. And afterwards, I'm as excited to see them as the next person, because I don't really feel like I photograph. I do it. It's being done through this vessel, if that makes any sense.
It does, absolutely. It seems that you're intuiting, you're connecting with spirit and feeling guided to photograph.
Yes, it's about the beauty. It's about the richness of love in the moment, and all of a sudden I'm clicking, and then I'll stop. And I'll wait, and then all of a sudden I'll see something that excites me, and I'll take a photo. And oftentimes at John of God's, when I was in the entity's spirit in the room, in the current that the entity is in, I would be next to him for hours and hours at a time. And Jose Penteado said to me one day, I took this beautiful photo again of the altar crystal, but it wasn't with this huge arc of light. Rather, what I saw in it was a rainbow. And when, for some reason, I showed that photo to Jose Penteado, the entity in John of God's body, and he said, I gave you the intuition to take that photo. And he said, do you see inside it? Francisco Xavier, St. Francis Xavier, put his image in this crystal on the altar 500 years ago. And he showed me where it was. I didn't see it, of course, at all. And he says, even Medium Joel, John of God, has never seen this. And those are the kind of gifts that were just, I was blessed to have happen, and that I've been able to share with the world.
Well, it's wonderful, Karen, and I've seen some of the images, and I've done some research on John of God, but for the benefit of our listeners, I wanted to ask you if you could also tell us a little about John of God, because some of them may not have heard of him.
John of God is one of the remarkable trance mediums that lives in Brazil, and because there's a melding over these last 150 years of the Portuguese coming, and the black slaves that they brought, and the shamans from the Amazon, the melding of those three religions, of the Catholicism and what the other two richnesses of their religion, the three of them melded into spiritualism, and where they talk to the dead, basically. And even though some of us may think that's strange, you have to remember that even the Catholics not only believe in angels, but they also believe in exorcism, that there is a spirit world that can be communicated with, and saints, that we can communicate and pray to St. Francis Xavier and different saints, St. Ignatius of Loyola, who is the patron saint of the Casa Dominacio, which is the trance medium John of God's house, or casa, where his work began about 55 years ago. He's now 70. And the wonder of and the beauty of this is that he had always had a kind of psychic ability, but definitely was not a trance medium. And he was very poor, and you can read all about this in our book on John of God. It's a beautiful story of a young man at 16 leaving his home because they couldn't feed him, and he needed to feed himself. And his father was a tailor. He had learned how to do that. So he went to this bigger town, and once again they kicked this another 16-year-old out. They didn't want him there. And under a bridge, waiting to go to the next town, this beautiful woman appears, and he sees her physically, and it's Saint Rita of Cassia, his patron saint too. And she told him all about what was going to happen to him, and told him that it was important for him to go back into town and to go to this particular church, that they were waiting for him. When he got there, the minister said, "Are you João Teixeira da Faria?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And that's the last thing he remembers. What happened was he collapsed, he thought. What happened was is the spirits took over his body and mind, and he rested, almost like in a dream world. And 50 people were healed. When he came back into his body, and the spirits, of course, take very good care of him, protect him very much. He didn't know what had happened, and the minister took him home, gave him a good meal, and told him, and a good night's sleep in a real bed, and told him what had happened to him. He was not only surprised, he didn't think it really had happened, and he said that the minister then told him, "You have to come back tomorrow." It was King Solomon who had been and worked through him. He couldn't believe it, and he stuffed his pants with bread because he didn't know where he'd get his next meal. He said, "Okay, I'll be there at 2 with you." At 2 o'clock, he collapses again, and he thinks, and instead, King Solomon killed 100 people, and then when he came back, the minister started teaching him, so that he began to have a real working knowledge of how this happens. I have some beautiful photos of in what we call incorporation, where you can actually see the central channel in John of God. The energy is just flowing powerfully, and it distorts the image, and everything around, like his lapel and everything, is in perfect exposure. And it is that moment in which his consciousness is leaving his body, and the saint or the entity is coming in. There are thousands that work there. There are 37 that talk through him, including St. Ignatius of Loyola, St. Francis Xavier, Dr. Augusto, some of the ones that are well known. And when you go in front of the entity, you stand in front of the body of John of God, but he's not there. St. Ignatius is there, or Francisco Xavier is there. And they will speak with you, and they'll help you, and they'll give you direction. They will also do surgeries there. There are tremendous healings. I believe over 9 million people have been there in these last 50 years. The healings are remarkable.
That's how it all began. Karen, I'm really intrigued to ask you about the psychic surgery, because I remember as a kid reading about psychic surgery and seeing a photograph of somebody psychically, putting their hand through someone's skin to perform surgery. Have you seen John of God perform surgery?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times over these 10 years. And I have some remarkable spirit photos of the actual time of the surgery, that because the energy is so great then. And in our book you can see all kinds of different photos. The blessing of the entities is that I would receive photos. I would be almost like a photojournalist. I'd take 7, 8 photos, boom, 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 boom. The first one doesn't see anything, the second one doesn't. By the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, it's in the middle of the surgery, and the lights are changing, the energy is changing, the spirits are showing themselves as light. It's really remarkable. He does basically 3 kinds of surgeries. One is the scraping of the eyeball, and I have really, really close-up pictures of this, where he uses a kitchen knife. For a while he had to use a scalpel. They were forcing him to do that in Brazil. Now he's back to using the knife again, and it will be serrated sometimes. If you can imagine scraping an eyeball so strongly that it actually, inverts. It goes convex, and he's smiling. He's looking at them, and he'll take maybe something out. The people will have a small amount of discomfort, but they'll not have real pain. And he'll do 1 or 2 eyes, and those kind of surgeries can do the bottom half of the body. He'll also do a hemostat up the nose. It's an 8-inch hemostat that he puts all the way up the nostril and twists. On the top of it, at the end of it, is cotton with blessed water. And when it comes back down, there's some blood. Sometimes there's some dripping. Again, it's a discomfort, but it's not pain. And that will take care of spinal problems, different kinds of problems that people have. I've also seen him cut the breast and stick his finger in the cut and then either sew it up or put his hand across it, and it will close up. He also does bellies. I've seen him cut many bellies and put his finger in there, sometimes take something out, but most of the time you can't really see what he's taking out. There's just something that the spirit is doing that is enhancing the healing of these people. And many times you don't know if it's cancer or what it is, but the entities know. And when you go in front of them, they tell you you will have a surgery. 99% of the people have psychic surgery. They don't opt for this. The entities will not do this to anyone unless they request it. Or once in a while, I've seen this where someone is coming in line and he will just stop the line and say, I'm going to work on you. And he'll do a physical surgery without them having asked previously. But 99% of the time, it's psychic surgery. I've never had, a physical surgery like that. I've never really wanted it. The psychic surgeries are enough because there's much protocol to it, and you have to be very careful. You need to go to bed right away. You need to lay down and sleep for 24 hours, not really walk around in the sun for a number of days. There's a certain protocol. It's all in our book, by the way, too, to tell you about it if you should be interested in going. It's a remarkable place, not only for the physical healing, but the emotional and spiritual aspects are just palpable, and the love that is there.
Sounds incredible, Karen. Is there video footage of John of God performing surgery?
Yes, there is. I believe in the documentary there is some with Oprah, and you can go on her website. There are different videos at Beyond Words, where our book is. There is a video on there. My friend who I just was speaking with before I spoke with you from Norway has just put a documentary on Norwegian TV, and she's finishing up the video and has just called me for some photos. And so that will be available. And there are, I think if you just Google it, you'll probably find the different people. There are a number of people who have videos out, and you can buy it at the Casa. I'm sure you can buy it through Beyond Words or, someplace like that.
Wonderful. Well, Karen, just as we're on the subject, just remind us again of the names of your books.
The books are called John of God, the Brazilian Healer, who's touched the lives of millions. That is a choice of a very long title done by Simon & Schuster. And the other one is called The House That Jill Built. And I did them almost at the same time in Connecticut when I was living there. And, they're both lovely. Of course, the John of God one is the one that Simon & Schuster has, it's now translated into 10 languages or more. And it's throughout the world. It's gotten the most acclaim. The other one is it's a lovely kind of tabletop book. It also can educate people, but it has never really, been published other than in the United States.
And you said that you have had a psychic surgery. Is that correct?
Not only one, many psychic surgeries over the 10 years. They start working on you and they never stop. And so if you come there, I mean, I've gotten away with not having one, when at certain times, but usually, everybody that goes there will be taken a really good look at, and you have doctors. I mean, that's what you're there for, is for these doctors to work on you. I didn't really go there for any kind of real physical thing except for migraines that I'd had since I was about 20. Other than that, I was pretty healthy. I'd gone more for spiritual upliftment. Never did I dream that they would tell me I was a photographer and give me these energy photos and the capability really to to have it, happen in other ways, more as orbs here in the United States, but also definitely energy. So the migraines, all that happened is one day. I didn't even have a surgery, really, for that. Dr. Augusto was talking with me, and Heather said she's had headaches since she was a child, and which I've had, but not really migraines. And he says, oh, yes, he says, that's true. He put his hand on my head, and that was the end of the migraines.
Wow. And can you tell us about some of the other healings? Which healings have you experienced in other people that most impressed you?
Well, the healings come in a variety of ways, and our book certainly has a lot of the healings of cancer and different things. But I think it's the change in people. It's the way that the love moves and changes, us when we're there. It's meeting the other people. It's finding an aspect of yourself, a center within yourself, so that you just naturally want to give. You just naturally want to be of service. So that, like, when I found myself doing the photos, all I wanted to do was give them away. All I wanted to do was do, the photo shows of the spirit energy, so that people could see and become inspired and know that there's something so much more than what's on our physical plates here all of the time, and that we are always guided and so dearly loved.
It makes you wonder if, in effect, with some of these surgeries, spirit are aware that an illness is forming or taking shape on the astral plane that may not have fully manifested on the physical plane, and they're therefore averting illness in the physical body. Do you feel that that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, there's no doubt that it's in the invisible realm that everything begins, and oftentimes it's an emotional problem, or it could be a possession. And definitely the Casa Dominacio is the biggest house of depossession in the Western Hemisphere. There are many people that talk about having, like, say, brain cancer. There's a young man that speaks on one of the videos about brain cancer, and he simply just sat in the meditation room called the current room of the entities, and that's all he did, and the cancer shrunk because he was aware of a possession of blackness that was within him, and the entities were able to remove that with his permission through the relaxation and through the love and through the meditations that he was doing. And the wonder and the beauty, I think one of them is, of the Casa, is that even though there is a Catholic background, people say the Our Father and the Hail Mary out in the great room before you go into the current rooms. But once you're in the current rooms, a Jain will sit next to a Buddhist, that will sit next to a Catholic, that will sit next to an agnostic. It doesn't matter. And everyone goes within, and everyone prays or does their meditation or sits quietly as they see fit. And the spirit guides there, the entities, work with you from within. They never ask you to change yourself in any way. And so people can really relax, and many, many things can manifest for people because of that.
Sounds like an incredible experience, Karen. So tell us, Karen, about your other experiences. So you've traveled to all over the world to conduct the spiritual photography. Can you tell us about some of the other experiences, spiritual experiences that you've had that have most impressed you or struck you?
Well, my journey began, it was without knowing it, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. A great suffering happened to me at the age of 17. I was sort of rocked to my bones, and I swore that if I didn't know something to help others by the time I was 25, I would end my life. I know that I don't think I would ever really have done that, but certainly that was the kind of pain, and that by the time I was to pass in this lifetime, I would know the meaning of life and death. And that's what came from these extraordinary death experiences that happened to me one after another. By the time I was 24 and a half, I met Sai Baba. And by the grace of God, each time I seem to go to these wonderful places, I'm given the gifts that others have not been able to receive, and probably because they didn't need it. They probably didn't have as hard a head as me. But I was lucky enough to meet Indra Devi, and she took me with 12 others to Sai Baba, and I didn't know that she was just an incredible devotee of Sai Baba's. And she ushered us immediately into his house, and we spent 4 months in his house with Sai Baba. I watched miracle after miracle after miracle. I was given Amrita. I was given a manifested ring to help me. All the things that I had wished for were there, in that it was the first time that I had ever experienced universal and true unconditional love, where I wasn't asked for anything like I was as a child. You do this, you get that. But this was different. This was the energy and the love of God. And I was forever changed. I came back home and I started the Sai Baba Center way back when, in I think 72. And that center's still going today. I'm not a part of it anymore, but it certainly was a gift in my life that really, I think, in a way saved my life, and it turned my life into a real dedication to God and to wanting to know more about my true self and the abundance that is within me.
It's incredible, Karen. Well, where do you plan to go next, Karen? What's on your horizon?
Well, what's on my horizon is to stay home for a little while and get my video production together a little more deeply. I want to go to the pyramids, and that's a really important thing for me. But interesting enough, right before you called, my dear friend from Norway just called me about a gentleman, and I want to talk to you about him later on. I've got his name here. It's somewhere I've written it. This fellow is in Brazil, and his name is no, I don't have it here. He is an interesting gentleman who, again, like John of God, has the angels, he calls them, working within him, and he dreams the future, and he has the healing ability, and she wants to bring him here to America, and so she wants me to work with her if I feel fit. So it's possible that I'm going to be maybe going to Norway next instead, that my whole life is taking a change as of about an hour ago. And that I'm going to be doing some video and photography around working with her. The guy's name is Juscelina Nobrega da Luz. I've never heard of him before, but she has had an extensive 1.5 years working with him, and he has a great deal to say. So I think that's probably might be one of my next directions. And then, of course, the pyramids.
Wow, the pyramids, amazing. And I'll tell you a little story about a photograph I've seen of the pyramids, and a couple of others, actually, when we come back after the break, Karen. So we're going to take a very short break, and then we'll be back together to talk some more.
Thank you.
A new era in psychic services has begun. PsychicAccess.com. You can connect with our psychic advisors by telephone or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our psychic advisors are interviewed, fully verified, and accuracy tested, assuring you quality service. We're living in some very troubled times right now. More and more, the world's problems are affecting us on a personal level. You don't have to deal with this alone. Our highly accurate psychics, caring advisors, and talented mediums can help with situations you are currently experiencing and can let you know what the future may hold for you. All new customers get a free 6-minute reading. All you have to do is register. Why not visit us now and get a free reading at PsychicAccess.com.
Okay, Karen. Well, I wanted to just tell you a little story about Egypt. We had a wonderful guest on the show, Evans Bowen, and she's very passionate about Egypt and has been there a number of times. And she showed me a photograph of herself in one of the temples, and you literally see a manifestation in light of Sekhmet. Absolutely incredible. So I'm sure that when you go to Egypt, you'll get some incredible evidence of spirit.
Evans is a friend of mine too, and I was going to tell you about that photo because it's the only other photo I've ever seen of a spirit photo that has that huge same arc of light. And I've never seen that manifested for anyone until Evans, and I thought, wow, you're right. She's my inspiration for wanting to go to the pyramids, and that picture is one of my inspirations. So yes, I know what you're talking about.
If you go with Mary Lamando, who we also had on the show, maybe I'll meet you, because I would love to go with Mary and Evans to Egypt, because they have access to some very special places that most people don't get to go. And I'd love to see your work as well. Well, I want to introduce one of my co-hosts, Karen. Brenda. Brenda would like to ask you a question, if that's okay.
I love it.
Hi, Karen. It's Lady Brenda. When you were talking about the surgeries, I had a client that had gone to see him and had a surgery. And it was for cancer in the liver. And I wanted to ask you if you had witnessed any of I'm sure people come there all the time with the cancer, trying, they're terminal or something like that. Had you ever witnessed any of that?
Oh, yeah. Being there over 10 years, so many people, some wait, until it's too late. I have to say that there is about a 70-75% healing rate. The important thing is to know that sometimes you go there for one healing and you receive the healing you really need. And some pass because it's their time. Others, are healed within days, and some still suffer. I have two friends. One, she was a nurse that had MS for 18 years and was just about ready to go into diapers and not be able to walk. When she heard about John of God from a TV program, and she said she saw Jesus standing over John of God in her mind, And so she went, and she'd had basically a suitcase full of drugs. She left with only taking one of those drugs, and it was 10 days, and she was completely healed. Now she's doing great service, again, as a nurse. My other friend in New York, he has been, I think, 25 times. He also has MS, and he continues to have MS. It is not, but he also asked to have a peace and a happiness, and right off the get-go, that happened to him. He has a sense of peace in his heart that he never knew before, and that never leaves him. But the actual MS has nothing but deteriorated, and how that works, is just the divine and the person themselves. But yes,
I'm asking because I have a very dear friend who's suffering now with cancer, and I would take that journey with her just to bring her there.
It would definitely be worth it. There is not only for her but for you. Oftentimes, the caregiver finds themselves having surgery and being taken care of in ways that they couldn't have even imagined. And because of that service, they love folks that help others and spread their love. And you will receive that from them in whatever form is necessary for you to know God even more deeply.
Well, thank you. Oh, and then Steve was talking about the pyramids. You have to I've been several times, and I think that if you're allowed to take some photos, if they allow you in the Grand Pyramid, if you're allowed to take some photos over that sarcophagus, you're going to get a lot of healing energy.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah,
Because if you lay
really
down in it, you'll have an immediate and almost spontaneous astral projection.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. Anyhow, I'm really enjoying this whole conversation, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It's always wonderful when one of my co-hosts chips in with a question, and I know that they're really enjoying the show.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
when do you feel you might go to Egypt?
It's up, to the divine. I don't know. I, again, may have just been diverted to Norway to help with this amazing man who is doing such very, very good work. And his predictions have been coming true, and they're accurate. He is like a psychograph almost. He dreams, and what he has told of the future has come to pass, and he does this not to frighten people about possibilities, but to allow people to work with themselves and to free ourselves, so that we begin to understand that we are gods with a small g. We have the ability, and Jesus said this, that ye are gods, that we have the ability to change our futures through the divine intervention within us, the love within us. And if we come together, our consciousnesses, in mass, more and more, this evolution that's happening for us can happen without a great deal of turmoil. So his work seems very, very important. And like I said, I've just heard about him, and I need to do some more study on it. But Anne, Christine, I know very well, and she, if she's behind him, I know there's something to it that I need to look into, and hopefully you may have him on your program, and her, eventually.
That would be wonderful. We're always looking for great guests, so that would be fantastic. Well, I know that you mentioned Oprah as well, Karen, and am I correct in saying that Oprah did a show about John of God?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she's known about him for years through Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz was going to bring her to Omega, and then that didn't happen, as far as I understand. And she basically, has heard for years about him, and I think she finally decided, because of, I think it was Wayne Dyer, who had a remote healing of leukemia. And when she heard that, I think that was finally tipped her over the edge. And her producers decided that she should go. And she went there. She was only there very briefly this last year. And the video is the documentary she did is quite lovely. And does show some surgeries, and really shows how at one point when she was standing up to see a surgery, the energy was so great that she had to sit down. She couldn't stand. It was so powerful. So she has done that, and we'll see what that brings to him. I know it will be a lot more people.
Absolutely. Can you just was trying to imagine the number of people he must have helped?
Well, 9 million have been there over these 50
Wow.
years. I mean, that's a lot of people. And 100 to 200,000, and probably more now since Oprah, go a year and can pass through this very small little village. And nothing is fancy. There's no suites. There's nothing there that has a grand hotel. You simply are there to meditate and to grow and to heal and to be of service when you feel that within yourself. And it's really all about your healing. So all kinds of people throughout the world. You meet the most wonderful people there. People that I know that I would have never met had I not been there. And all come together for this consciousness transformation that happens merely by being there.
It's wonderful. Well, Karen, are you planning another book?
I've been told that I should do a book a number of times of photos of John of God. And honestly, I've been so busy learning videography that and doing videos here in the Grass Valley area that and just starting that I haven't done it. But it definitely is on my plate to think about and to do. But that may be diverted too because of what just happened from my friend in Norway. So we'll see. But it would be an easy one, because I have 150,000 photos over these 10 years, having gone there and being blessed to take photo after photo after photo after photo, hours and hours and hours and hours in the entities room and even in the surgery room where no one else was allowed to photograph. I have rare photos, and they should be able to be seen by many people. So it's probably going to be something I'll do in the next year or so.
Wonderful. So a collection of those photographs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with small little, text about the moment, and stories, because I have so many stories. As I do like my photo shows, I just tell story after story of how the entity said this or the healing was taking place like that. So I'll probably do some of that in some of these photos so that people know what they're looking at, because they're extraordinary. I have a photo that you can see all this white energy just pouring down from the left to the right. And it's an amazing moment because I took this really before I was their photographer, where they had asked me to do this. And Francisco Xavier, St. Francis Xavier, was standing with his back to me, and Heather was to the left. And he puts his hand out, his left hand, and he says, "Who am I?" And Heather says, "You're Francisco Xavier, you're St. Francis Xavier." And he says, "The woman is healed." And he took his hands, he crossed them, and he put them down abruptly. The music blew that goes on, the lights blew, and I took this photo. And one of the mediums there took a look at it and said, "Do you see that? It's his hand of the spirit. It's not. There's actually just a man there." And you can see that he's holding his rosary. You can see the cross and the rosary. And that woman was instantaneously healed of cancer. And the spirits, there are thousands there, and you can just see this white light just coming in streaks down, from the top left to the bottom right in this picture. And I think that one's in our book. It's also on my website, which is www.johnofgodphotos.com. And you'll see different sections, portraits, spirit photos, the casa rooms, different things like that people can look at and also purchase if they want.
I wanted to ask you as well, Karen, whilst you're with us, how clearly you can sense the presence of the entities healing with John of God or through him.
Well, I don't know how to explain it. I can feel it's palpable. The love is palpable there, and there are times when it becomes almost overwhelming. The light, the energy within you. There are times when I will just weep because of the power of the love, and there's just nothing else. That there was no way I could contain it. I remember when I was with Sai Baba, and I was so young, and he had Walter Cowan there, who he had raised from the dead, and it was the first time I'd ever heard of anyone being raised from the dead. And he was remarrying him and his wife, and the energy was so fantastic. I remember thinking, I have my teacup, and I've come to the ocean, and I can gather my teacup. That's because that's all the capacity I have as a human for the extraordinary love and presence of the divine that's here in this moment for all of us. But of course, it was all about Walter and his wife and his death and resurrection. So it's the same thing at John of God's. I feel like my life turned on two great events in my life, and the first one was Sai Baba. I felt like my life was saved. And with John of God, I feel like my life was dismantled and resurrected again to be the person I am right this minute, and who is so willing and excited about this new evolution that is happening for humanity, and to be a part of it, to share in it. And that's why I thank you for allowing me to speak today and be here.
It's a pleasure, Karen. I would love to have you back in future as well to hear more about your work and experiences. I was thinking that also it would be wonderful for you to take some photographs of physical mediumship seances. Is that something that you've considered?
Well, I actually did a video for Greg and Tanya Stewart, the trans mediums that are she's from Brazil, and I believe that you interviewed Greg. He's a friend of mine.
Yes,
and
we did.
I haven't taken any photos. I took a video, and they wanted me to take photos of a seance, basically. And I was going to do that, and then at the last minute, there was a red light, and they said, they said no, but then they really didn't say no, apparently. I just didn't know it, and so I didn't take that photo of, trans mediums or mediums that were there. But I think eventually that will probably happen. I just love taking photos, and I just love seeing the divine in a leaf. I mean, the color, like sometimes of just a light that comes through a green leaf is enough for me to be inspired to take the photo. I can't explain it. It doesn't have to be overtly spiritual. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Just the beauty of nature.
Exactly, or the beauty of the moment, whether it's even at a party or anything, the love on someone's face for their child, or for each other. And all of that is the inspiration that I so deeply care about. And when I get a spirit photo, I'm so grateful and happy, that it has happened again.
Well, it's very exciting, Karen. It's been absolutely fascinating to have you with us and to interview you. And I have ordered one of the two books. I must order the second. I'm really looking forward to reading them. How did you find the process of writing? Did you find that you were also channeling?
Yeah, absolutely. That was an amazing story in its own right, because Heather was in Brazil, and I decided to start the proposal for this book that it seemed like the entities wanted us to write. I've never written a proposal before in my life, so I wrote this proposal, and it was all about the love. And I had someone come over who was more into business who said, "Are you kidding me? This is all about business. You got to talk about money." And I had to scrap it and start all over, so I started another proposal about money and why this book would make money for the publisher. I did that, and I created all the chapters and created, how the pictures would look and all of that. Packaged it up, and just as I was doing it, the niece of Ralph Lauren, Jenny Lauren, called to ask about Heather and whether she was in Brazil and all of that, because she had just written a book, and Simon & Schuster had given her quite a bit of money for it. And the last chapter was about her being at John of God's and the healing of bulimia and anorexia. And so I told her, well, I'm packaging off 6 proposals because I was at the Javits Center a couple months ago, and a number of people there, because I was there for the signing of the house that Joe built. A number of the people said that they would be interested, that were small publishers, spirit publishers, that they'd be interested in the book. So I was ready to do that. And she said, well, would you mind if I just hand deliver this to Atria, which is Simon & Schuster, Atria Books? I said, I'd love it, Jenny. Thank you. I said, I just hope you like the proposal. So I shipped it off to her. The next day she got it to Atria. 2 days later they called and said, would you we would like to send this to somebody else. I think it's just a little too spiritual for us, for Atria. Well, what they didn't tell me is it was Beyond Words, who's out here in Oregon, and they had done The Secret, and they were just becoming part of Simon & Schuster, but they were their own separate little entity. So the wonder and beauty of it is that we got to be with mom and pop folks, and at the same time, Simon & Schuster, the big house in New York. So that's how that one happened, and when we wrote the actual book, we hadn't written it at all, and they flew out from, I was in New York at that time, in Connecticut, and Beyond Words, and they met us at Simon & Schuster's, and they said, don't say anything, and I said, okay, and I gave them the photos, and they had the proposal, and they went to Atria and pitched it for that year, and the woman says, well, I'm assuming it's written, and I'm going, oh my God, and she says, oh yeah, and so we got the commission to do it, and within 8 weeks we had written the book, Heather and I together, and we would go separately and write our aspects of it, and then come back together, change it, edit it, write again, and then once we sent it to Beyond Words, they had editors that we were able to work with, and the book was produced within a few months, really, and then published within the year. So it was quite remarkable. You could tell it was divinely given, and the entities had a real big hand in it.
Well, it's a great story in itself, Karen. I want to thank you again for being with us. It's been a great pleasure to hear about your experiences and your work with spirit photography. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And
You're welcome,
lots
Karen.
of blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck in Norway.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care now.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Hello, my name is Res Miranda. If you're having relationship, career, or life issues, I'm inviting you to experience what it's like to have access to professional, highly accurate psychics and spiritual advisors you can trust to care and help you. Register now to get your free 6-minute reading by telephone or chat. Get answers. Get access. Psychic access. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. PsychicAccess.com.